Hello there. This is going to be the 6th and final part to this story, so if you haven't seen the previous 5 parts yet, watch them first, or else you'll be very confused at how we got to this point. But without further ado, let's get back into the story. We open this part of the Avengers compound. Carol Danvers has just arrived and the Avengers are working at tracking Thanos down. Gwen senses a massive burst of power she didn't sense since Thanos snapped in Wakanda, and she informs the others that she may be able to trace it. Tony asks how they're going to get there. It could be months until he can solve space travel, and Kevin casually tells the team he'll give them a ride. The Avengers board the Rust Bucket 3 and take off. They arrive at the garden. Carol goes down for recon and she comes back in utter shock and reveals Thanos is already dead. They go down to the surface and Ben stays behind to fly the ship due to not having his powers anymore. They find his hut blown apart, and Thanos' body with a sword through his chest. We then cut to Nebula and Rocket sat with the Ravagers in a bar drinking their sorrows. Back at the garden, Gwen attempts to reach out with her powers to find the stones, but she feels nothing. Tony concludes that he must have destroyed them. The team then crumble at this revelation. 6 months later, and we find Ben, Kevin, Cooper, Tony and Bruce working tirelessly in a lab. Over the past 6 years, Ben has been designing and building a new superior Ultimatrix using ultimate grey matter. Azimuth was snapped away with half the universe. The device is now finally finished, and Ben looks to it as the universe's last hope. He puts it on for the first time. He activates voice command override and enters a unique code. The AI responds and the celestial sapien DNA is unlocked. Ben slams down the core and Ben transforms into Alien X. Within Alien X, Ben begins to plead with Bellicus and Serena, but Bellicus interrupts Ben saying he knows why he's here, but they will not help him. Ben shouts at them asking how they can allow something so catastrophic to happen, and Serena tells Ben that this event has already been decided on by many other celestial sapiens, and they cannot change this without facing dire consequences. Ben looks around in utter defeat, and can't even look the two of them in the eye. He begins to break down and simply asks that they let him go back so he can be with his family and friends, and they need to know why. He owes them that. Serena seconds the notion, and Ben transforms back to human. Ben says he's sorry, but he couldn't get them to help, and everyone breaks down. 5 years later, and the Avengers couldn't be further apart. Ben has been patrolling the world as Accelerate, and occasionally the galaxy with Jetray when he got bored, taking down anyone who was causing trouble. In this time, Ben has killed Vilgax and Agrigor. He stopped pulling his punches. After his parents and Max got snapped away, he's been struggling to cope on his own. Kevin walked away from everyone and went to join the Plumbers off-world. Gwen, with everyone in her life gone, went to live with Verdona. Scott Lang finds himself trapped in the quantum realm, but is rescued when Paradox arrives telling Scott that this is the exact moment he needs to return to the surface world. Paradox flashes Scott back and leaves. Scott goes back to the Avengers compound to find Natasha and Steve holding down the fort. They get Tony on board and they work at getting the team back together for a time heist. Ben returns to the Avengers compound first, and realises he needs to reach out to his friends. He goes to pick up Kevin first, and Kevin is reluctant but agrees to go, but doubts Gwen will want to see them. They both abandoned her when she needed them. They go to Gwen, who has grown a lot more powerful under Verdona's training. She attempts to refuse, but Verdona tells Gwen that she needs to go with them. If there's a chance that they can undo what has been done, then they have to take it, and Gwen agrees. Ben tells the trio that they have one more stop. The Rust Bucket 3 arrives on Asgard, and the three of them approach the palace. Thor sits atop the throne, with Frigga at his side. Little side note, due to Loki being on Earth in 2013 during Thor the Dark World, he never got Frigga killed, so she's been with Thor this entire time, stopping him from slipping into depression. The Asgard planet also still being in one piece was also a reason why Thor didn't slip into depression. Ben tells Thor about what they're about to do, but Thor wishes them luck, but regrets to inform them that he can't go with them. His duty is to his people, and they need their king. Ben says they understand, and the three of them leave. Frigga asks for a word with Thor in private. She tells him that she thinks he should help them. Thor asks what kind of king would he be if he abandoned his people to travel through time. And Frigga tells him that his duty goes beyond Asgard. It's to half of the universe that was lost, and the half that had to cope with being left behind. And more importantly, to his friends and loved ones. Thor understands and calls Stormbreakers with his hand, and summons the Bifrost. Back at the compound, the team run into an issue. They only have enough pin particles for a round trip for everyone, and they have no other way of testing whether or not they will work. Paradox then flashes in and assures it will work, and what they're about to do is extremely important for the balance of the universe, and all of time. He wishes them luck before leaving. The team group up for the brief. Kevin, Rhodey, Natasha and Clint are going to 2014 in the Rust Bucket 3. Ben and Thor go to Asgard in 2013, and the rest go to New York in 2012. The team say their goodbyes and go back in time. In 2012, Tony and Scott put their plan into action, but Hulk knocks Tony back out of the way. Before Loki can pick up the Tesseract, he's knocked back by a blast of mana. Gwen picks it up and discreetly walks out. In 2013, Thor and Ben get the Reality Stone. Ben now, for the first time, showcases his use of Ultimate Ben, and uses his chameleon powers to sneak through the palace and find Jane. Thor then walks in to distract her, while Ben extracts the Reality Stone from her. In 2014, complications occur. Rhodey and Kevin are caught by Korath, and the two fight back, but Korath calls it into Ronan, and Nebula and Gamora overhear, and they feed it back to Thanos. Kevin and Rhodey successfully hold off the Kree, but the Black Order are beamed down to the surface. Kevin tells Rhodey to get out of there with the Power Stone, and he does so. Kevin puts up a good fight but is captured by the Black Order. The team arrive back in 2023, and the team's celebrations are cut short by Rhodey and Clint's sadness. Bruce asks where Nat is, and Gwen asks about Kevin. They mourn their loss by the lake before putting the stones together to bring everyone back. The team argue over who gets to do it. Bruce volunteers, but Ben said he should do it. Chroma Stone's powers should be able to absorb the energy. The group nod in agreement, and Ben activates his Chroma Stone powers. He puts on the gauntlet and begins absorbing the energy. He focuses and snaps his fingers, bringing everyone back. All of a sudden, the time machine activates from the other side, and Thanos' ship shoots out into the atmosphere. He rains fire on the base. Back on Thanos' ship, Gamora and Nebula visit Kevin. Gamora asks how bad it was, living with half of the population gone. Kevin tells them both that the universe erupted into chaos. Power vacuums in every corner of the galaxy. Crime and violence everywhere that the plumbers couldn't handle. Nebula and Gamora look at each other. Nebula says if Thanos goes down there and finds his plan failed, there's no telling what he'll do next. Gamora says they need to stop him. Nebula agrees, and the two of them free Kevin. On the surface of the planet, Thanos looks around the wreckage. He summons the Outriders to go down into the wreckage and retrieve the stones while he waits. Most of the Avengers scramble to escape the rubble. Tony and Steve come across Thor, stood at the edge of the wreckage staring at Thanos. Ben then phases out of the wreckage using Ghost Freak's powers. The four begin to circle Thanos, and once again he elaborates on what his plan is now, and the four of them attack him. Kevin, Nebula and Gamora split up. Kevin mutates and phases through the wreckage to save his friends, while Gamora and Nebula search for the stones. They come across Hawkeye being overwhelmed by Outriders, and they save him and reassure him that they're on his side. Back outside, Tony tells Thor and Ben to hit him with lightning, and Ben uses his amphibian powers to do so. Thanos puts all of them on their back foot and defeats them all. Steve stands to his feet in an act of defiance, and Thanos summons his army, but then hears something over the comms. A bunch of portals open up and the fallen Avengers begin walking through, joined by the Wakandans and the Sorcerers. A portal opens up with modern-day Nebula and Rocket, backed by the Ravagers, and another with the rest of the Guardians. Max and the Plumbers' helpers enter through a portal too, and through another, an army of plumbers. Charmcaster also walks through a portal to join them. Scott bursts through the building carrying Rhodey, and Kevin and Gwen also burst through. Ben is ecstatic at Kevin being alive and stands to his feet. He activates voice command mode and tells the Ultimatrix Mark II to activate House Party mode. The Ultimatrix begins to glow, and the Ultimatrix announces it is assigning AI consciousness to the DNA samples before releasing every alien Ben has ever used onto the field, including Ultimate Aliens. Ben then meets with Max, and he gives Ben a plasma cannon to fight with. Steve calls for the Avengers to assemble, and the armies charge towards Thanos and his army. The Avengers work at getting the stones away from Thanos, but the Black Order stands in their way. Eventually, Captain Marvel arrives and takes down Thanos' ship. Thanos wastes no time in finding and picking up the gauntlet. He puts it on, but Carol charges into him. She holds his hand open and is barely able to remove the Soul Stone before he punches her away. Steve, Thor and Tony attempt one final time to stop him, but Thanos beats them all. Kevin and Gwen pile on Thanos, and Gwen calls Ben to tell him it's now or never. Ben activates voice recognition mode again, and inputs the familiar activation code. The AI once again announces that Celestial Sapien DNA has been unlocked, and Ben slams down the core. Inside Alien X, Ben meets with Bellicus and Serena again. Bellicus, before Ben can even say a word, refuses to wipe Thanos from existence. Ben says he just needs to be able to fight against the Infinity Stones, that's all. Serena looks at Bellicus and calls for a motion to grant Ben limited combative control over Alien X, under the condition he doesn't alter existence. Bellicus seconds the motion, and Ben looks at them both in astonishment and gratitude before muttering, "Motion carried." Back on Earth, Thanos is about to collect the Soul Stone off the ground when he's stopped by a black hand. Alien X is then revealed, and Ben telekinetically throws Thanos backwards. Thanos closes his fist and the two begin fighting. Thanos uses the full extent of the 5 stones against Alien X. Thanos attempts to teleport Alien X across the galaxy, but Alien X teleports back and crashes into Thanos' back. Thanos uses reality-altering powers to confuse Ben, but Ben undoes Thanos' changes and counters them. Thanos uses the Mind Stone to control Carol, Thor, Hulk, Tony and Steve to attack Alien X. He also tries with Gwen and Kevin, but their inhibitors protect them. Ben goes through their heads, freeing them all from the Mind Stone's influence one by one. Thanos in the meantime attempts to retrieve the Soul Stone. Thanos uses the Space Stone to pull the Soul Stone into his hand. He puts it back into his gauntlet and attempts to snap, but Alien X catches his hand. Thanos pulls away and punches Alien X with the full strength of the Infinity Gauntlet. Alien X flies backwards. Thanos attempts to snap again, but Tony leaps onto Thanos' arm. He kicks Tony away and attempts to snap, but the stones are missing. Tony reveals he has them. Thanos looks over in utter fear before Alien X punches Thanos in the side of the head. Alien X looks over and tells Tony to give them to Bruce. He looks to Hulk and says it's his turn. Tony sacrifices half of his suit to form a gauntlet on Hulk. The stones are placed on his knuckles and Hulk snaps. Across the battlefield, Thanos' forces disappear before Thanos himself turns to dust. The team look around in awe, and within Alien X, Bellicus and Serena tell Ben there's only one thing left to do, to preserve reality, and Alien X waves his hand. 2014 Gamora and Nebula begin to glow and fade away. They then reappear in the reality they left behind. The Infinity Stones also disappear, and go back to where they came from. Ben then reverts back to human, and all of his aliens are absorbed back into the Ultimatrix. Everyone goes home to celebrate. The original lineup of Avengers retire except for Ben, who remains to lead the Avengers. And that is where this story ends. Thank you very much for watching this story and following it to the end. As always, I loved writing this. I loved developing Ben and throwing him into these tough situations where he was forced to grow and stand on his own 2 feet more. It was really fun bridging the gap between UAF Ben and Ultimate Ben 10,000 while ignoring the Omniverse canon, and it seems a few of you guys did too, judging by the views, you know. I've got a couple more stories in development, so stick around for those in the coming weeks. But until then guys, thank you again very much for watching. I'll see you guys for my next live stream on Wednesday. May the Force be with you, may the power protect you. Bye.